Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So yesterday, somehow unexpectedly, Kabam dropped the deep dives, and unfortunately I couldn't break them down straight away. But, well, here we are right now. So let's take a look at Attuma. And out of the both champions coming out next month, Attuma is definitely the one that caught my eye more, because he's exceedingly unique and also I think will be useful. Obviously, it all depends on how exactly he incorporates himself in the contest, how well his playstyle flows together, what the actual numbers are going to look like, because we can't really trust the deep dive numbers, and things like that. So let's break him down. The coolest and most interesting thing about Attuma, in essence, is that he wants his ability accuracy to be reduced, and he consistently reduces his own ability accuracy. So, and his entire playstyle is basically geared around putting up as many concussions on yourself with heavy attacks as possible, and then having his abilities trigger 2, 3, 4, whatever amount of times. While Attuma's personal abilities with a listed chance has over a 100% chance to trigger, the ability has a chance to trigger additional times. Each time basically minus 100%, and whatever is left over, you have a chance to trigger it again. So for instance, if you would inflict 1 bleed, but if you have 300% chance to inflict bleed, you can end up inflicting 3 bleeds guaranteed. And all ability accuracy modification effects of him basically are reversed of any source. And that is very, very cool, because we have a ton of these around the contest right now. For instance, I don't know, when you fight either a domino, or we have these true lies nodes where your true strikes and true accuracies don't work, but his ones will. So it's going to be definitely very interesting. Also, one thing that will immediately make him annoying to fight against is that Attuma's rough skin abrades his opponent with a 15% chance to deal 750 physical damage when they strike him with a contact attack. Damage scales with base attack only. So he's going to be kind of like a mini Electro as well, in a sense, where you want non-contact attacks against him only, and unlike, for instance, Korg, energy attacks, can't bypass this. So it will strictly, ideally, want champions who have non-contact attacks. Otherwise, if he has big attack rating, you're going to take quite a bit of damage back. Whenever the opponent evades, Attuma will, while he has less than 1 bar of power, he gains a bunch of power, and also goes unstoppable for half a second. So none of the champions that want to evade will work good against him, and he is going to be going kind of like ham against evaders. Obviously, when opponent evades, he can still get hit, but he's going to be unstoppable, and he can just kind of carry on his combo. So this is definitely also going to be quite useful offensively. And you guys kind of are getting the gist that he seems that he's going to be pain to kind of fight against. Especially since he randomly just purifies stun debuffs. That's it, that's one of them. Whenever you stun him, he's just going to purify it. That's also one of his abilities, and that's all this combined, when you can take damage back when you hit him. If you evade against him, he goes unstoppable and gains power. When you stun him, he's going to shrug it off and gain a concussion, and start increasing his ability accuracy. He could be quite annoying cookie to crack. Right. So we covered this, and here we can see it's an example of damage back taken. So we're going to see exactly how useful it is. Now, one thing that kind of reins him in slightly is that his base regeneration rate is 25% instead of 100%, but it cannot be lowered further. He has a way to increase it by another 25% to end up with like 50% regen rate. And that is because he's going to be spending pretty much the entire fight with concussion debuffs on him. With his SIG ability, he also can gain 90% bleed resistance, so you can still like run double edge with him, but I don't think you can run liquid courage with him like at all. Unless I don't think he can purify it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Now, hydration. The water in Attuma's special attacks grants him stacks of hydration, which are passives that fall off one at a time, each is lasting 7 seconds. With every stack of hydration, Attuma's attack rating is increased by 200, and his regeneration rate is increased by 175. So this is how you increase your regeneration rate. At 10 stacks of hydration, Attuma becomes immune to Incinerate and gains Precision passive, increasing his critical rating by 2200. Now, that Precision passive is quite important. That Incinerate passive, that Incinerate immunity is not going to be practical in most of the situations, because in order to get to 10 stacks of hydration, you will need to get to a level 1 and drop several combos, and if you're going to be using it against like Freezer Burn or something like that, you're just going to be dead by then. At 19 stacks of hydration, Attuma becomes passively unstoppable. Now that's obviously a huge pain to deal with. When he's inflicted with or is immune to an Incinerate or Shock, Attuma loses 1 stack of hydration, and hydration falls off 30% faster while suffering from Cold Snap. So that's how you kind of get rid of those. And here's going to be like an example of him converting these power stings against Yellow Jacket into further concussions. He can do that with heavy attacks. He can basically convert any of the non-damaging debuffs on him into concussions when he lands a heavy attack. Or if he doesn't have any non-damaging debuffs on him, then he uses the hydration charges in order to gain those concussions. And it's kind of like a cycle of basically trying to reduce your ability accuracy as much as you can in order to have your abilities trigger as many times as you can, and then it just kind of goes into exponentially bigger damage rotations and high loops. So he is kind of a ramp-up character, which is like the one thing I really don't like about him, because he is definitely a champion that kind of needs to ramp up. Here is his heavy attack. 100% chance for Attuma to attempt to purify 1 non-damaging debuff, excluding concussions, and replace it with a concussion debuff, reducing a team's ability accuracy by 50% for 25 seconds. So it's long-lasting concussion that will trigger your willpower for 25% of it, and reduce your ability accuracy by 50%. But you can stack like 20 of these, so or even more, or like 40 of these, and that means that every time you will trigger your ability, for instance, gain a cruelty, you're going to gain like 5 of them, because your ability accuracy is going to be like 500%. If non-damaging debuffs are present, this ability consumes the oldest stack of hydration instead. Fair enough. This ability also triggers when Attuma is inflicted with a stun or Infuriate debuff. That Infuriate debuff seems like personal to Hercules there, but yes. So here we can see that his special attacks give him varied amount of hydrations. Again, in matchups where you do not get any non-damaging debuffs placed on you, which is going to be the majority of the matchups, basically your rotation is going to be get to a level 1, get hydration charges, and then drop your heavy attacks to convert them into concussions, and then you kind of keep doing that and recycling level 1s or level 2s by gaining hydration, converting them into concussions, and then gaining more hydration as a result, and then doing the same. And his special attacks, how on true accuracy on level 1, which you can probably maintain for a really, really long amount of time. And then he also has cruelty passives, and obviously he can gain the precision as well. So eventually he can hit really, really hard. And then his level 3 can inflict like a massive bleed on opponents that will deal a ton of damage if you have ramped it up properly. And now his SIG ability. And that SIG ability, I'm kind of undecided whether or how important it is. By the looks of it, it really doesn't look like you need it that much. It's kind of like a nice-to-have thing. For instance, incoming bleed debuffs suffer 90% potency, but you will probably not end up running him with Liquid Courage Double Edge because of his reduced regeneration rate. So, you know, it's nice. So you can basically, with Coagulate, treat him as bleed immune. It's definitely a nice to have, but I don't think it's must have, like in a generic matchup. Then Attuma's Rough Skin can now also deal damage anytime he strikes his opponent, and then the damage is increased by 10% for each bleed effect on either champion. And this one's also like, you know, it's nice, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. And then his energy resistance is increased for each stack of hydration. But again, this isn't exactly a super reliable energy resistance increase, because you're going to be getting hydration, then be getting rid of that hydration. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, but I don't think his SIG is going to be super kind of like vital for the character. And now then we can see in some of his rotations with special attacks, he can gain that precision passive that he can stack multiple times if his ability accuracy is reduced, and then that's on level 1s, sorry, not precision, true accuracy passive. And on level 2s he gains cruelties, which obviously is going to let him crit like more. It didn't look like his damage is going to be like off the charts, but again, that is deep dive, so we can't really base much on that. Only like really, really big numbers there where the level 3 bleeds. But again, we'll see how his damage works out. But at the very least, combining everything together, we can definitely see that he will be problem matchup, or rather a matchup that you will want to have specific counters for. Because when you hit him, you know, he's going to be dealing damage back. And if you try to reduce his defensive ability accuracy, for instance, then it's getting increased instead. And you're definitely going to be getting that damage back. And yeah, we'll see how many good counters to this guy we will have, and what are going to be the most convenient ways to counter him. Offensively, a champion that can purify non-damaging debuffs, and therefore, by extension, ramp up significantly faster, and also a champion that has access to basically unlimited amounts of true accuracy, should you choose it to do so by the sacrifice of some of your damage. Also, slight healing to mitigate chip damage throughout the entire fight. I can easily see a place for him in the contest, is what I'm trying to say. And that's why I'm kind of more excited for him. Again, both of the champions next month seem to be kind of like a ramp-uppy champions, which I'm never the biggest fan of. But Attuma definitely seems to be also quite a big pain on the defense. We can see 38 bleeds there, ticking for like 12k, 15k per tick. And that's with like 74 concussions. And just think about his ability accuracy at this point. Because if you have 74 concussions, means that you have, what, 370% chance? No, 3070% chance to increase your ability accuracy. So every ability you're going to trigger is going to trigger a whole lot of times. And also with that, you get a bunch of cruelties and everything else. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how he works out. But I want to play around with him. He seems like a very unique, very interesting champion. Now, the synergies, honestly, I don't think any of the synergies are like that crazy for anyone, really. Attuma gained 20% bleed potency, but suffered minus 20% ability accuracy, which is obviously something that you want. So this one is nice. It's good. Some more damage, some bit more ability accuracy increase. Namor, this helps Namor ramp up faster. Ironically, this is also exactly what Kabam kind of took it away when they balanced Namor. So, you know, I don't think it's going to change much for Namor. With this synergy with Juggernaut, Titania Thing, and Hulk and somebody unknown, you basically gain 20% attack rating when fighting at a class advantage, or you negate class disadvantage. So again, it's quite neat, but it's not necessarily a game changer. Here, this one I kind of like the most for Invisible Woman, where landing a heavy attack while invisibility is unpaused repauses it, which in theory means that you can parry and then heavy, and you're still going to be invisible. So this gives Invisible Woman like a parry if you are able to land a heavy straight after that. And you can do that a couple of times. So this could make Invisible Woman kind of easier to play, but I think Invisible Woman needs a bit more help than that. So Wasp plus 10% flat chance to trigger personal purify for each debuff on her. It's kind of neat. Phoenix heavy attacks have a 25% chance to grant Phoenix force charge. Additionally, you know, I don't think it's, again, Phoenix needs more than that. And the last one that's interesting is with Toad and Man-Thing, where Attuma start the fight with Dormant Hydration Charge, which in effect is going to just help you get more hydration. So this is going to be useful for Attuma. When it comes to Toad, landing a heavy attack refreshes all poison debuffs on the opponent. It's nice in theory, and it would be useful if Toad's heavy attacks wouldn't take away 3 of your poisons, and you quite rarely end up throwing heavy attacks in like practical fights. So I don't think this is too important for Toad. And the delay before empathetic agitation begins to fall off is doubled for Man-Thing. The problem is that entire agitation mechanic is just kind of underwhelming, and you play Man-Thing basically with heavy and special spam. Heavy, special, heavy, special. And medium attacks, which are required in order to build the agitation, just aren't really in Man-Thing's kind of typical rotation too often. So I don't think this is, you know, anything super important either. So when it comes to synergies, there are some neat ones, but nothing too crazy out of this world. When it comes as a champion as whole, I do think he's a very, very cool addition. Somebody that just randomly, again, purifies all stuns. Thrives when his ability accuracy gets reduced, and is very unique. And whether he will fit in the contest or not, obviously, is going to depend on the values, how easy it is to use him and stuff like that. Because we have had, you know, examples of this to the positive extreme, And we have had examples of these type of experiments to the negative extreme. Obviously, like champions like Psycho Man look like extremely promising on paper, where you have all this AI manipulation, power control, ability accuracy, and all of these cool things that, you know, basically in a world you could read Psycho Man's spotlight, and if you don't see how those numbers actually look like and how he's actually to play properly, you know, Psycho Man could come across as like this insane, powerful tech champion, which he could have been, but he isn't, because his kit doesn't come together as well. You need to sacrifice your damage for your utility, and it just takes setup and one thing and another. Or we have champions like Quake, we have champions like Ghost, who have virtually no or very few of their class characteristics. They are outliers in their class. They don't function anything like most of the champions in that class. In the case of Ghost, she has no power control, she has no armor up, she has no heal block, and she's insane. And that's because she works on completely unique at the time mechanics there. And Attuma, again, obviously is gonna be somewhere in that range, which is basically any champion in the game. But it's always interesting to see Kabam try and experiment new things. And yeah, I definitely want to get my hands on some rarity of this champion to see how he feels, whether his damage is competitive, how hard he is to fight against, how useful he will be offensively in kind of like a casual matchup, which game modes he could shine, because I could easily see him potentially, you know, being a Battlegrounds champion. I could see him potentially being Alliance War Defender, maybe an Alliance War Attacker, who knows, because Alliance War, again, has some ability accuracy reduction stuff and some, you know, random stuns here or there. So yeah, it's definitely going to be very intriguing. I'm kind of uncertain, somewhat puzzled about the champion and his practicalities, because he's very, very complex and unique. But at the same time, I'm kind of optimistic, looking forward to it, which I think is good, which I think is very good this time around. Let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna catch you guys soon. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about